In November, Scarlett came here on a managed transfer from another school. She was here for about 10 weeks. And then it was probably in about December time that we were aware that Brianna and Scarlett's paths crossed when they were in the inclusion room, which is where Brianna spent her time within school. There was always a member of staff in there. And Scarlett used to go in for a couple of hours a week because we couldn't always match, well, we couldn't match her timetable exactly the way it had been at a previous school. So she had some time in there to do self-study with a member of staff there as well. So we were aware that their paths had crossed. We weren't really aware of it in terms of a friendship as such. Like I say, Brianna's time in school was quite different to other students. She came in later, she left earlier, and she was always with a member of staff. But the fact that they knew each other, and from what we heard in court, there must have been some sort of friendship there. It just makes it even more horrific. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to believe that anybody would do this to somebody, but never mind a child to another child, and especially somebody that it appears that Brianna trusted. I probably met Scarlett twice. When we were looking at the managed transfer for her to come here, I had a meeting with her and her mum and a member of staff from her school, and we just talked about what the conditions would be of her coming here on a managed transfer. So we set targets in terms of behaviour, in terms of attendance, and she was very quiet and she was very polite, and she agreed with all the targets that we set. And then around school, probably saw her a couple of times in those 10 weeks that she was here, and she would say hello. Again, came across as quite shy, but polite, and that was the general impression from the staff that worked with her in the short time that she was here as well. When it first happened, I felt like there was a level of responsibility because they'd met at this school. And I think that's like a kind of a normal human reaction that you think, well, if she hadn't been here, they wouldn't have met. But in terms of actually how we could have in any way have stopped that happening, there were no signs, there were no red flags, which is really difficult in terms of that reflection of what could we have done differently. I suppose for me the only thing that I think would be better moving forward is, I think that better communication between like social care, health and education would allow us to have more information about students. And I'm not saying that there is anything particularly in Scarlett's history to do with her health or social care that would be a red flag. But in terms of when students come to our school, we very much get information around their education. And I think the more information you've got about students, then you're able to support them more effectively and to understand them more effectively. And as something going forward, I think in general that better connection between, or better communication, I suppose, between those services and sharing of information can only be a good thing. I would just never have thought that it would be so easy for a child to be able to access the dark web. I don't really even know what the dark web is, and as an adult I wouldn't know how to access it. And for me there would be a presumption there that would be something that would be very difficult to access, and for me it raises the question of why is that so easy to access, and how are children able to be able to access those things. And at least now, with the restrictions being lifted, we can have those more kind of like open conversations with the community and with students to say, yes, Scarlett was in this school for a short amount of time, and some of the students who are still here may have seen her around, and we can have those conversations where it's that reassurance that within school was very safe, the awful thing that happened to Brianna happened at a weekend in a different area in a park, and just having that, being able to have those more open conversations to reassure students and to support them as best we can is a lot easier now that the restrictions are lifted, if that makes sense.